Hey everybody, it's Brandon Ross, and I am more than a medium. So much so that I'm going to actually bring to you an explanation about the full moon, this one in Pisces. Well, this is kind of an enjoyable one. And as you know, the full moon creates all sorts of weird energies, right? You ever stop to wonder why it is that we have such weird energies? Well, hold on to your hats. I'm about to show you why. There's actually a very simple astrological reason as to why the crazies come out, whether they're werewolves or just plain old Karens. They come out when the moon is full for a lot of different reasons. Well, let's take a look at a couple of things here. First of all, let's actually show what it is that the full moon looks like up here, right? The way that this is, but if I put myself down here, whoa, hey, look at that. In opposition, there's three things up here on the board that I want you to take a look at. First of all, the sun is in Virgo, the sign of Virgo, and then the moon is in Pisces, the sign of Pisces. And then you see this barbell looking thing, which means that you're in opposition. Anytime, astrologically speaking, when you see the full moon, know that the sun is in direct opposition to the moon. You've actually been talking astrology every single time you talked about the full moon. You were talking about this particular aspect. And of course, that moves around once a month, every 28 days or so, into each one of the signs so that then we see the entire full moon in each one of those. And no, it does not skip any of the signs, even in anomalies. I'm sorry, Aquarius that want to be held up against this. Oh, we don't always get a full moon. Yes, you do. Stop, you do. Just because you're a shorter month, quit your crying, okay, Jan? But here on the other side of this, you've actually been talking about astrology for a really long time. Now, the dynamic tension that goes on between the sun and the moon here, that's what's notable. That is what the part that makes us so energetically bound. You have Virgo. In this case, you have the Virgo, sun in Virgo, which is about a certain amount of self-righteousness, a certain amount of understanding about process, about your routine, not liking change. And then you have Pisces. And the moon in Pisces, which is about the dreaminess and go ahead and dream and, go with the flow of creativity, not necessarily being bound by the rules of society. So that's why people go a little bit crazy. You actually have this dynamic tension that is pushing against one another, or should I say pushing against one another, just like, say, the opposition sign within astrology, right? Well, I want to make myself look a little bit differently here. So, listen, taking a look at this, also, let's pay attention to which house. So get your rising sign out, everybody. Sun, moon, rising, put it down below. Tell me a little bit about yourself. But here's a quick rundown about your rising sign and how this full moon might just affect you. Well, Aries, we're going to start with you because we always start with you. Ladies first, ladies first. Here we are. It's happening in your 12th house primarily. Now, one piece of kind of like caveat, just because you're an Aries rising doesn't mean that that if you're like at that early sign, if you're in the early part of Aries rising, you're going to actually fall into the first house just because of how that all kind of flows. Because the degree, and by the way, this is really important too, the degree of the moon, the full moon this month is at 725, 7-7. Guess what, everybody? That adds up to 14, which adds up to a number 5. This is a very big change moon, everybody. This is going to change you. So when this moon lands in your 12th house, Aries, it's about taking a look at your spirituality. It's also a bit of the house of the undoing. By the way, emotions and Aries don't always go together. Kind of a little bit of hothead. The heat of the Aries, the water of the Pisces, double it down with the moon. You might come to a boiling point. Might be a little of your undoing. So take it easy. I'm going to show you guys why it is you should take it easy here in a second. And then you have the natal position of the moon, which is in Taurus in the 11th house. And I'm going to show you what I mean by the natal position of this. In other words, if you were born at this full moon, at this exact conjunct full moon, you would be sitting there in the 11th house. This moon would be in the 11th house, right? And Taurus, with your acclimates, you actually have it sitting in your 11th house. So this is actually a highly social time. You're going to be practical. It'll be about morals. It'll be about like-minded people, but that's okay. Get out there. Enjoy it a little bit, because Gemini in your 10th house, I do believe a corner office is calling for you, or at least a passionate one. Maybe not the corner office, but maybe one you'll be really comfortable in. Because as this full moon happens in your 10th house, it illuminates the creative things that you might want to do, or how you can go about your passion creatively. You can still have a 9-to-5 practical job, but if you approach it the right way, it can be very fulfilling there, Gemini rising. Cancerians, interesting placement for you as the moon treks through the 9th house. This is about your spiritual development. This is about things like travel, about learning things about the world. Be ready to expand with that. Hope this full moon illuminates your inner truth here. Now, Leo, sitting here in the 8th spot, guess what? The 8th house is about you recreating yourself, the rejuvenation. You're really grabbing on that Scorpio 8th house energy here with Leo and Pisces creativity. You're paying attention to the dual water signs, where Aries hits the boiling point over there at the 8th house. Here in the, or over there in the 12th house, here in the 8th house, you're about rejuvenating, because Scorpio energy is allowing you to recreate who you are. This is a big boost of not only creativity, but also finding your new passion. Woo, woo, woo. Way to go there, Leo. I know a couple of them. Virgo. Virgo, thanks for playing along. Thanks for showing up, right? By the way, even though the sun is in your 1st house, which, by the way, makes perfect sense because the moon is happening in your 7th house. This is a house of relationships. So what you self-identify as good relationships. Maybe you're like, maybe I'll take a flyer on the person I always thought as an oddball. Or maybe you just simply say, I can see what you're doing and this doesn't work for me. You're going to clean up some relationships with this full moon. And Libra, moving into the 6th house, you have been all about your routine. You had a couple of false starts here, Libra risings. And here's where you're going to get it right. This full moon comes in and kind of does a little dust up. It's kind of like, that didn't work. I know I need to get up in the morning, but 6:45 doesn't work. But 7:15 does. And you're like, I never would have thought about getting up at 7:15. By the way, Libra rising, thank you. I just spoke to all of you on that one. Sometimes it's the little tweaks that'll get you there. Scorpio, 5th house. Can we just talk about keeping our clothes on for maybe 2 or 3 days or Scorpio rising? I'm only kidding. But this moon illuminating your 5th house is another creativity burst. This house of Leo with a little bit of water and then putting it into your Scorpio, kind of like, hey, I'm going to kind of get it there. Oh, yeah. This is a highly creative time. Don't be surprised if you come up with new ideas that nobody else is thinking about. Nobody else. Sagittarius, 4th house. Time to pay attention to your foundation, your family. Maybe this is a creative way of talking to, emoting, and kind of being like, hey, mom and dad, you're not like the mom and dad I thought you were going to be, but I kind of love you anyways. And then they're like, well, we don't care. And then you're like, back to therapy. But that's okay, Sagittarius rising. You're doing the work even if they aren't. By the way, I may or may not be confessing something there, and I may not be reading somebody. Anyways, Capricorn rising, transiting through the 3rd house. You're finding your voice in all of this. Right? The 3rd house is about communication. And by the way, when I talk about Mercury here, I want you to pay attention to that too. But as it moves through the 3rd house here, this is also illuminating how it is that you communicate with someone. You're going to do it in a very compassionate way. I'm not saying it's in opposition with how you do it, Capricorn rising, but sometimes it's a new feel. Sometimes the emperor gets new clothes when you're kind, right? Right, Capricorn? You're like, oh, I was particularly nice. And you just didn't rip their head off. But that being said, Capricorn, this is going to feel very natural for you to have creative healing energy into this. Now, Aquarians, into the 2nd house, you got kind of a double dose of, and by the way, you're sitting in one of your fixed energy houses here in the 2nd house. It's the house of Taurus, blah, 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 all that other stuff. And when this wishy-washy moon kind of comes in, you're going to say to yourself, I've done all this work, but maybe I just have to tweak it a little bit. Remember that tweak thing that Libra kind of went through? You're going through it too in a different sort of way. Yours is going to be more about your money or your finances, or maybe you do make that investment that you didn't, make before, in particular in yourself. And then, of course, Pisces, in your 1st house, double dose of creativity. Pisces rising on the ascendant, right? And gosh forbid if you're a triple Pisces here on this one. Just get a box of tissue, dial into the Hallmark channel, pull out your paint, even if it's paint by numbers or finger paints. You're going to be like, I just need to create. Break out that, your mixtapes from 1992. Listen to all your Richard Marx favorites. I know you're out there, Pisces, triple Pisces. I know you are. But guess what? This moon moving through this first house for you is for you to say, I'm worthy, I can get it, and I know what I'm doing. Right? It's a genuine way for you to look at your self-identity and a new creative way to look at it. So listen, let's go back to a little bit. I want to go into what's also happening in the charts. I'm going to show you a very simplified chart, a couple of them here. So what's actually happening, if you read this from left to right, what's actually happening in the sky, aside from the transit of the house that it's going into, is what's magnifying a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about is the moon is conjunct to Saturn. Woo. Pisces is doing due diligence here. It's saying some of the stuff didn't work, or maybe you just got to do it differently, right? It's a mutable sign. Immutables equal change. They just change it up to make it all work. The least amount of ego, generally, and then also allowing yourself to flow with the change. Well, this combo platter means that you're going to illuminate the creative way about what your structure should look like. And right now, the bolts are loosened up just enough with Saturn that it's not doubly down concrete, that it'll shift a little bit. It'll change for you. Nothing's in concrete. This concrete hasn't dried yet in you. And by the way, you've still got time to make changes, because that's what we do. We reserve the right to change. We reserve the right to gain more information, more experiences, and apply them so we can become the best version of ourselves. That's kind of sort of a little bit what this is doing right here. You've got the moon and you've got Saturn kind of having this conversation together. But wait, there's more as we slice and dice the tomato. We've also got Virgo representing. You've got the sun in conjunct with our old dark friend Lilith. You want to know what's going on here? I'm going to tell you what's going on here. You've got the practicality of the Earth sign Virgo sun sitting there saying, you know what? I'm large and in charge. By the way, the angle's a 5 right here in the full moon. Remember what I just said about the 7 and 7? 7 plus 7 is 14. 1 plus 4 is 5. It's a change sun for you guys right now. And then you've got Lilith in conjunct. I'm going to show you the diagram. But Lilith in Virgo actually talks about that self-fulfillment of being able to be of service, right? You heal through that servitude, not being subservient. It's a little bit different. It's kind of like you guys like to worship at each other's altar. You see what I'm saying? It's not necessarily you looking at it going, oh, you're better than me. No. It's I honor you, you honor me. By the way, this is also a highly reflective positioning that you can do the self-healing, get down to the routine of what healing is. See also Virgo, get down to the idea that you are worthy, the struggle of the Virgin Mary. It's also about the connection of the sun illuminating the darkness of Lilith, shining light on it, allowing you to have acceptance. Oh, did I not say that this was not like one of the most healing moments in the history of ever in astrology? Hang on to your hats, because I'm not done yet. Because I spent a lot of time, effort, and money, that is to say the better part of the afternoon. I'm going to make this as humanly big as possible. That is to say slightly bigger in my head. This is what the chart looks like. And I just erased everything except for what was affecting the moon and the sun here. The moon sitting here natally. So if you were born on this day at the exact full moon, you would have your Saturn and your moon in conjunct in your 11th house. You'd be a Taurus rising, and your sun and Lilith would be in the 5th house about creativity, right? You'd be creative about how you would serve others, right? In simplicity, this opposition in conjunction here is working very strongly for you to work with your own self-healing, right? And by the way, there's another aspect I'm about to show you that's going to blow you out of the water. I don't hear anybody talking about that. I hear them talking about it, but they don't show it. Listen, we're on the internet. We've got pictures. We should show them, right? Just not talk about them. Thank you for tuning in, liking, and subscribing, and all that other jazz. But this is what's happening. And again, take a look at what's happening with the angle. 25, 7, 7 plus 7, 14, 1 plus 5, 1 plus 4 is 5. Same thing over here, 7, 25, 7 and 7, 14, 5, right? Yeah, you can get into the nitty gritty about how that's going to affect things of Saturn to really kind of drill it down. But just look at the healing energy. You're illuminating your structure on both sides of it. right? The full moon is shining with Saturn. What do you structurally have to change for your own happiness? All the bolts are loosened. Where do you want to move it? Then you've got the sun illuminating the darkest aspect in the sky in Lilith, the dark night of the soul, and saying, you're okay. You're worthy. You're not supposed to be shunned by society. You're not supposed to be shunned by gender roles. You're not supposed to be shunned by the color of your skin. This is a content of your character placement. Thank you very much. I'm glad I wasn't indicted. Anyone else think of that? This is a comeuppance too. If you've done the right thing, you can accept yourself. You can accept where things are at. Now, without further ado, wackadoo, I want to bring in this other chart that I'm incredibly excited about. I'm going to show it like this for now, but I want to talk a little bit about why it is this is happening now. We have the energies that are coming in that are allowing us to do this self-analysis. If you are not working on your emotional ego, your emotional intelligence, your emotional IQ, you are going to be left behind. It's that simple. You want to think you're spiritual? You better get your stuff together. You better be able to say, like, I'm going to try new things. I'm going to get outside my comfort zone. I'm going to say that I'm wrong, and I'm going to learn from failure. If you can't do that, you are toast moving forward. Sorry. All you spiritual people talking about this, you're just spiritual bypassing if you don't apply those laws. They're more truisms because I don't like laws. Just ask my lawyer. Anyways, having fun with that one. All right, guys. So listen, let me make this a little bit larger. So then I just kind of peek down here, down the bottom left-hand corner. Thanks for liking, subscribing, sharing with all your friends. Look at the energy flow. Now we've got the sun, and there's a reason why I left the sun here, down here in the 5th house. I covered up with an arrow, but you guys are smart. You guys know where the sun is. It's that thing with the dot in it. Boop, boop. Then you have the moon sitting at the opposition of it. That's what makes it full. Illuminate the sky, illuminate the night. But I want you to focus in on Mars sitting in Libra. So you have Mars in an air sign, which makes you kind of like think about the attack, think about the movement, think about the next step. This Mars in Libra is making you be reflective and go like, I got to think about this. What's fair? What's fair? It's one of the most judicious placement with Mars in Libra, but it's also something that's going to allow you to want to connect the dots of action for you to be whole, for you to be in action, or for you to be healed. Well, this arrow moving up to Pluto into Capricorn talks about the empowerment, the rejuvenation, the recreation that Pluto and that energy, right? That Scorpio energy of being able to be reborn, if you will. So you start with Mars saying, I need to change something because I need to be in balance. And then you have Pluto sitting in Capricorn going, let's do this practical, brother. You know, kind of giving a fist bump over there to Mars. But wait, there's more, Ginsu lovers. Now look at that trine energy. And by the way, it's not quite a grand trine, but round the corner, do-si-do. I'm going to point something out really, really unique. Again, it's going to blow your doors off. I love my work. Pluto is giving influence over to Uranus. Let's just focus in on Uranus. Uranus is the rebellion. It's the quick and sudden change. It is stuff like the internet. It is stuff like technology. And it's kind of saying, I have to make this monumental change and rebirth into who I am. And that energy coming directly from Uranus goes right over to Mercury. You know, by the way, before it takes off, Uranus is hanging out in conjunct with Jupiter. Jupiter's the great expander. You know, Jupiter's that best friend that says, you know, when you walk up to Jupiter and you're like, hey, you want to make a fire? And then Jupiter goes, do you want some gasoline? Huh? And then Jupiter is also the one saying, we need to do the right thing. And then they're like, oh yeah, let's do the right thing and tell everybody else to kiss off. Jupiter's kind of your best friend. Jupiter's the one that helps you move the body sometimes. Well, guess what? Jupiter and Uranus together in Taurus is like, not only are we going to do the right thing, we're going to do the right thing for us. You know how I know that? Because it's sending the energy in this largest arrow down to Mercury. Mercury sitting in Virgo. Your actions, by the way, one of its natal placements, its action is going to be about your routine, your self-preservation, how you take care of yourself. Here's the magic of this placement. I want to show you that at 19 degrees, it is not conjunct to the sun. Would have changed the entire convo. You would have been a flibberty gibbet and going, I'm the best. I can't do this anymore. I can't blah, 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 blah. If Mercury had been conjunct with Mars, like, we're going to mess people up. Let's see if Jupiter's got some kerosene. That's what it would have been saying. But instead, it is not conjunct with Mars. It is not conjunct with the sun. As a matter of fact, the chi stands alone. This allows you to do your actions without undue influences. Trine energy, that gentle encourager, moves from Mars, the point of action, Pluto, the point of recreation, Uranus, powered by Jupiter to say, we're going to do this our way. And then into Mercury to say, this action is your own. It is calling for you. It is screaming for you to change in a way that is self-healing, that is about your personal routine, about how it is that you are meant to act in complete isolation from anybody else. She stands alone here. As a Pisces, I'm here to tell you that Virgo is sort of my arch enemy, but it's also my best friend. Virgo in this position, not only with the sun illuminating the moon, by the way, talking about all that healing energy going on with the conjunct with Saturn, and then the sun illuminating Lilith. And oh, by the way, yeah, that does sit there in the middle of Lilith. But guess what? Guess what, everybody? It's time to heal. That's what makes this placement and this full moon so potent for your own self-healing. But you've got to do the work. Don't think somebody's going to show up and suddenly say, hi, everybody, you're healed. No. That's not how it works. And I'm going to this shaman. I'm going to this Reiki teacher. I'm going to this crystal person. I'm going to whatever. There's nothing wrong with working with any of those people. But if you're relying on them to heal you, you're missing out. You're going to be a client forever and you're never going to get there. But until you start taking responsibility and recognizing the things that you need, creating your own boundaries and your own activities and your own routines to help your own mental status, to help your own physical health. Yeah, it's the stuff you put in your body. It's also the stuff you watch. That's why I highly recommend to get through this full moon. You want to do a couple of things. Probably should have made a chart for this. The first thing is find something that brings you joy. Joy. Maybe he's playing games with a friend. Maybe he's sitting by the fire. Maybe he's going to see a concert. Maybe, just maybe, it's not just going to the spa, but rather doing something different, doing something new. Second thing is finding things that excite you. Finding things that allow you to work within your healing dynamic to say, it feeds my curiosity. You want things that feed into your knowledge base. Mercury is incredibly intelligent. You don't want to mess with it. And last but not least, why not unplug? Unplug. Even Uranus is like, listen, this is too much for me. Mercury's like, I'm in retrograde for a reason. Oh, I can't believe I haven't even mentioned Mercury's in retrograde. Of course. It's having you review everything that you're looking at, dude. Everything. Saturn conjunct to Mars, to the moon, is making you look at what you're doing. High review time. Everybody gives retrogrades a bum rap, but I'm going to say this as plain as I can. You have got to pay attention to the astrological weather with this one. This is one of the most healing dynamics I've ever seen in astrology. I know other astrologers are talking about revealing the truth and blah, blah. Okay. Start with the truth of yourself. Quit watching the TV and waiting to see shock and awe happen. We already know how this is going, how it's going to end. Oh, what's next? Guess what? You don't need the front row of seeing somebody else's train wreck. You don't need to see what happens on Vanderpump. You don't need to see what happens in the 4th District Court. You don't need it. So don't take it. Unplug for a little while and see the world from the root of a tree. I challenge all of you to lay underneath a tree and look up and just be. Sit by the edge of the water and just watch the water go by. Sit out in the middle of the fields and count the crickets. We miss so much of our life and we aren't healed because of it. And when we start to realize that a lot of the reasons that we're not healed, whatever the freak that means, is because we've just had self-inflicted wounds. Allow yourself to rest on this incredible spiritual journey you're on. You would not have made it this far in this video if you weren't on one. Give yourself a break. Go back to some basics. Write a story or sit and do nothing. Enjoy the breeze on your face. Listen to the birds in the sky or just watch the rabbits run across the field. Your healing is up to you. I'm going to give you the heart tap so you heal this full moon. And I'm going to remind you to simply keep going. Thanks, guys, once again.